Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Nate, should we do a roll call?
Let the record show all the commissioners are present.
Great, thank you. Could you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Are there any special presentations or proclamations? We're going to do oral communications next. So don't think.
Just, Mr. Chair, if you would allow me, I'm Pam Antill, the city manager, and I just wanted to give a brief update on the recruitment for a new Recreation and Parks and Cultural Services Director. We have worked with Human Resources to begin putting together a recruitment brochure, and we will be in contact to, of course, get your input into that process and what you think might be what you're looking for in a new Parks and Recreation Director. In the meantime, I have appointed Roy Sapow, who is our new Deputy City Manager. He was promoted from Director of Development Services to Deputy City Manager. He will be serving as interim and will be participating in your meeting tonight. Just wanted to give you all an update rather than doing that through email.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And welcome, Roy. Thank you for being here, taking on this responsibility. We are glad to have you, so thank you. I don't think we have any special presentations. We do have one oral communication, which is going to be a little bit atypical in that we're going to go a little bit longer than our 3-minute time frame this. And I believe Commissioner Meldal, would you like to perhaps introduce our speaker, if that's okay, please?
Thank you. Yes, I would. I've known Doug for many years, and we're very pleased to have him here. Doug has many accolades and accomplishments, and so I won't take up too much of his time. I'll just highlight a few of them here. Doug is a wetlands ecologist and a champion of conservation in Southern California. He oversees the Nature Collective's nationally recognized science and community conservation programs. The Nature Collective is one of the managing partners for the Santa Leo Lagoon Ecological Reserve. Doug is currently guiding a $120 million environmental enhancement for the reserve. This project, known as Reviving Your Wetlands, will enhance estuarine habitats, build new community trails, and address climate change and sea level rise in its construction. Doug has received funding for habitat restoration and public outreach from the EPA and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. His work has restored 40 miles of stream habitat through the control of invasive plants. Doug is a member of the National Restore American Estuaries Conferences, is on the board of the California Invasive Plants Council, and is chair of 5 coastal counties for the Southern California Wetlands Recovery Project. Doug blends his extensive knowledge of coastal wetlands policy with scientific literacy and fundraising. His efforts have been recognized through awards from the city of Encinitas and from San Diego County. So Doug's leadership in conservation and restoration sets a national standard for a nonprofit organization. So thank you, Doug, for coming to speak to us.
Thank you. There is our logo. So our first page shows how we transitioned from the Santa Leo Lagoon Conservancy, which was a very localized group focused only on Santa Leo Lagoon, to an organization that works all over not just San Diego County, but California and abroad. Right here, we exist to drive a passion for nature for all. And Nature Collective exists to connect all of us to these special places, making sure that everyone has access. We are one way. One way we are connecting nature to protect these natural habitats, land, and nature is to ensure it's available for everyone to enjoy. one of our biggest restoration projects has been revitalizing the Santa Leo Lagoon Ecological Reserve. Like many estuaries across San Diego County, California, and the world, the Santa Leo Lagoon ecosystem has been degraded, negatively impacted over many decades by human activities such as expansion of our cities, our sewer systems, our industries, and these have reduced the water quality, flow, and health of these systems. 20 years ago, Nature Collective, then the Santa Leo Lagoon Conservancy, had a big idea. When I came on, I've been here for 29 years now, and this was my dream to restore this lagoon. And I came up with this concept of restoring this lagoon to a position that would help not only this ecological system, but help the people that lived around it. It would better the water quality, reduce the mosquitoes, all of the things that, that it might be impacted, which we were seeing, and then increase like the fisheries and the abilities of this system to help us. So you look at the Pacific Flyway, we are a major contributor to the Pacific Flyway. We have species that are coming up and down that flyway and coming here and trying to nest, but if the water quality and the system is not functioning, then those species cannot survive. So we wanted to make sure that they had the right systems that they could do that. And as part of our restoration project, we went through this process to get water to flow in and out of that system more regularly. So today, the project is complete with ecosystem thriving. We have 5 new species of fish we've never seen in that lagoon. We have the entire bottom of a very large section of this lagoon now covered by scallops. Not seen in over 1,000 years. Looking at water quality conditions, what we were able to do was increase the tidal velocity. We have sharks in there, we have scallops, and now they're like, this is their home territory. And they're gonna survive there as long as we keep this going. That hurricane hit, and this is hard for me to say. We went through a massive fish kill. We lost almost all of our big fish during that hurricane tropical storm that just hit. It pushed so much pollution down the watershed, things that we really can't control at this time. We don't have control of what comes down. So it hit at a very bad time, neap tides, where it came down and laid in the lagoon. And that killed pretty much every large fish that we had. Halibut, diamond turbot, bass, everything. And small things seem to find a way to go up. And it was very sad. What we're seeing now is it was 2 weeks later and we already see things coming back. So we want to make sure that we're able to deal with these other pressures that this system is going to see. If we are going to see these climate style events happen where we get these unique warm weather storms in the middle of the summer where you have 4 months of like runoff coming down at one time. We had, during that event, we had 3,500 CFS, basically a major river flow down Escondido Creek for 24 hours. And that's one of our almost like a 40, 50 year flood event come down. The system was able to absorb it, but the fish weren't. The invertebrates weren't. So we want to make sure that we just look at those things as we move forward. So Our goal was increasing mud flats and looking at that sea level rise. So when we look at the area of Santa Leo Lagoon, we built some stepping stones. Who's been out to Santa Leo Lagoon? Come on. Okay, good, thank you. The two new bridges, and then that area in between those from the Nature Center, that's a stepping stone. That wasn't that high. We built that specifically to build a stepping stone for species to be able to move up to, as well as a refugia area during storm flows. So as sea level comes and rises, species will be able to move, and then we'll be able to look towards our eastern basins to be able to look at that habitat expanding. But they have a place, at least temporarily, for them to exist. So cordgrass and ridgeway rails, which is a great word to say. Everybody say it, ridgeway rails. So clapper is one of our most endangered species in San Diego. It is a very unique bird that exists primarily within a cordgrass habitat, which is Spartina, which is this little grass area that you see that bird in. And we planted it all over, but we also had a lot already growing. We went from 12 pairs of ridgeway rails before our project to 76 pairs. So we became the second largest population in like 3 years. But what happens when tidal fluctuations change and that cordgrass goes away? They're not very smart birds, and I'm not here to like advertise their stupidity, but they're just not. So they step out in front of peregrine falcons and harriers, and so they're easily picked off because they just don't understand where they're at and the predators that are there. So we're trying to find ways that we can make sure that that bird survives, because it's one of our obligations with the Fish and Wildlife Service and our obligations to the restoration project. So now with one of the most extensive restoration projects that have been done in Southern California, this was a $120 million restoration project. We have this unique opportunity, and I think it's our allegiance. Encinitas and our organization has this ability to monitor this for the next 50 years. So Sandag is on the hook to pay for our monitoring for till 2070. So this is a very big opportunity for us to look at what is sea level rise and how is it going to change these types of systems. We know, like, this is a Parks and Rec, and so you're not looking at infrastructure, but to me, you went out and looked at the living shoreline, right? So what did the living shoreline tell you that happened this year? We had a really, really massive year where the living shoreline got tore up. We lost like 30 feet of the foot of that living shoreline, but did 101 really get hit? So it didn't. It protected that structure with a soft fix, and then we were able to go back in collaboratively with our funding and your funding, and then rebuild the foot of that. So I think if we look at the way we're moving forward and trying to build our beach structures and protect 101, because either it goes or it doesn't, right? Sometime it's gonna have to go. So how do we protect it to the most ability that we can? living shorelines are a great way. We just proved that that's the way. Water quality, yeah, well, I mean, we've increased our water quality. That was one of the main reasons that we went through our restoration project to begin with. We do fish, inverts, surveys, but we've never caught an octopus. Have you? Because they're very smart. They're incredibly smart. Even if they were in the net, they would crawl out before you were able to pull it onto shore. And we got this one right here last year. It was awesome. A bunch of people got to hold it, and and then it went off and did what it wanted to do. We have sea lions that continually go east of 5, beyond where tidal flow had been in the last 4 years. So there, as you all know, there used to be a weir across the East Basin that you could walk across, and tidal flow didn't exist. But we blew that away, and we brought tidal flow back up to bring this concept of what's going to happen in the future in sea level rise, that we are allowing this natural progression to happen. And we have sea lions that are going all the way up to those areas. And it's really helping, I think. Something that was really unexpected, eelgrass. Eelgrass is a subtidal habitat, and it's a vascular flowering plant that lives underwater. So there's not very many of those plants that do that. We had a very small population in our inlet area between Highway 101 and the railroad trestle. It equaled like maybe, I think they said like 2.4 meters, square meters of habitat. Now we have acres of it. So, and what that does is it builds up your fisheries habitat. It basically increases the ability of flatfish and other bait fish to breed within a system. And now, because of our increased tidal velocities, this is now there. And we do monitoring, every year, every season, to make sure that we're not losing that habitat. Birds, we have belding savanna sparrows like this. We have the ridgeway rails. We have Leisbell's vireo. We have about 9 different federally endangered species that we're monitoring. In Santa Leo Lagoon Ecological Reserve, just as a reminder, this is less than a 1,200 acre reserve, and we have more endangered species here than almost every state in the continental US. So, I mean, it's pretty important. We live on the edge of an ecological hotspot. So we should make sure, and that's just birds. It's 34 species of plants and mammals that are like either threatened or on the list. So we want to make sure that we do the best that we can to make sure these systems are progressing in the future. Access. Access was a really big part of why I wanted to do this project. It was to be able to allow not just myself, but everyone to get through and to be able to visit these areas. And that meant accessibility, allowing as many people as possible to go through and visit this system on a basis where they weren't limited because they might be in a wheelchair, they might have other issues. So flatness was very key. We created this 3.2 mile loop around the Central Basin, and we've had great success. We've had people go through it. There are some challenging areas, and we're still working with that. But we have had people go through the whole thing in a wheelchair, and I was impressed because I don't know if I could do that. And people were willing to try that. The people that are on our board were willing to try that aspect and make sure that we were saying what we meant as we went through. So our school and education programs, we're doing about 5,000 students a year. We have entire school districts in Escondido, Tier 1, Title I schools that are coming in. We work a little bit with Cardiff schools. We are working with San Marcos and Vista, the school systems that just really can't afford to pay for busing to come out. So we look for grants to bring them out and build programs that can help facilitate those students to come out and have an experience with nature. Another way we provide community outreach is via our volunteer program. We have a program that allows about 500 volunteer hours completed, or 3,200 hours with 500 volunteers doing work from helping on weekend events, as well as plantings and going through the Trail Ambassadors program at Annie's Canyon, which is, who's been to Annie's Canyon? All right, okay. So that's the #1 ranked trail in San Diego. So if you haven't been there, I suggest you go. It's a unique opportunity where everybody goes to Del Mar and they go to Torrey Pines, but they can't climb up the trail. They can't go up a canyon, and this allows you that opportunity to do that. Another way we provide outreach is events, and right now we're sort of working on what our next event will be, which is Fields of the Future. And I'm not going to show you anything regarding Fields of the Future. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. So we had this opportunity when we started this project with Caltrans about taking over the agriculture fields above the gas station just east of the 5. That area was agriculture, and it has to return to some form of agriculture. And so we said, we'll take it. And then we started developing this project called Fields of the Future, which is agriculture, our native nursery program that involves the entire community, and our volunteer program to help participate in what we're going to do. It's going to bring education, art, and all these things together in a large complex that we can make sure that we're satisfying that goal that they were reaching. Harbaugh Seaside Trails, one of our projects that we bought, and I was really happy to hear that the city bought, the property on the other side, sort of similar to Harbaugh Seaside Trails. Not sure what those end goals are from the city, but we restored this area. We brought trails into it and connected it to our system. And I think we're looking forward to working with the city to do similar trail systems and or restoration to make sure that the area that isn't primarily going to be developed has that opportunity as well. I'm not going to go into the living shoreline. We sort of talked about this, the importance of it, but so this sort of alleviates a lot of these. Wow, we went into that. So Bataquitos, which would be that, like, that other side of this. We do a lot of work there. We're doing all the restoration work as it's being planned around that lagoon. There is the organization that is currently running that, the Bataquitos Lagoon Foundation, with Wild Coast. We do their implementation of restoration, and we're working collaboratively to make sure that that continues. Val Sereno, which is an area within the Encinitas borders, used to be a lake. Who was here when it was a lake? Any of us? Gosh, I wish somebody was. But it was a lake, and that dam broke in the 80s and blew out. And so it became this riparian area, then got infested with eucalyptus and other invasive plant species. And now we're spending millions of dollars to remove those to try to build up a habitat that will be sustainable in the future. Right now, we're out there building habitat for the Lis Belsvario, which is that little tiny bird. And you're like, oh, why? But that bird is endangered, and that is our requirement to do this, to really help this area, build it up, and to make it more sustainable. So if you follow Escondido Creek up, it takes a direct left turn, or right turn, and that whole area was Val Sereno. Lake Val Sereno was what it was once called. Yeah, what? It's sort of a canyon area. Yeah, it was called, it's like between Lone Jack and El Camino del Norte. Yeah, so that area is it's like a 90-acre site that is now owned by the county. There was a nonprofit that used to hold title to it. They were called the Environmental Trust. They sent their board members on retreats to Hawaii, and so they went bankrupt after a while, and so that went back to the state, and the state had to redistribute where that land went. So the county accepted that because we had agreed to work with them to restore those areas. Plant nursery, this is one of our main areas. We do, the majority of the Santaleo Lagoon plants are planted through our nursery. We plant and grow everything from seeds in that actual area. We're looking at doing a much bigger nursery at the Fields of the Future, and that involves a lot of community support and a lot of community members to help us achieve that. And we have tons of partners, lots of state partners, lots of local partners, and we're willing to work with anybody who feels that it's necessary that we are trying to provide, again, back to our mission, access to anyone to nature in any way they can. So that's all I got. I'm happy to, you can do donations or whatever. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to ask.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate
Answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that presentation very much. Quick question to staff. Would it be okay if there were questions allowed from commissioners if there are any?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at all from any commissioners for Mr. Gibson?
I've got a question. On the lagoon that goes out to Del Mar, where SoCal Edison did all the improvements,
Yes.
is that on par with what you've done at San Leandro?
We're ahead of them. We're meeting our objectives sooner than they have. But there are two projects happening there. So there is what's called the Songs project, which is the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station that happened like 5 years ago. That's having troubles right now. But then there's a new project, which is the other part of the North Coast Corridor program mitigation for Sandag, and that's just underway. So they don't have like initial data yet.
Do they have the same kind of trails?
No. So see, yeah, that's not a part of them. They stuck to the habitat and that side of it. We felt that it was more important, and I feel it's equally important that people have access as opposed to just meeting a requirement.
I have a question. Thank you, Doug, for the presentation. It's always great to hear you speak. I was curious if, as I look in that area where the Fields of the Future is going to be located, I see a lot of the Caltrans material being removed and grading happening. When do you foresee where you'll actually start building something there?
So again, we're sort of in a quiet phase right now of fundraising, but we're hoping that that property is transferred to us by spring of next year. That's almost 2 years out of sync of where we thought we would be. But you know, we're not going to push them. We're just waiting for them to get to their end result. Once that happens, you know, I think our public campaign and where people can see what we want to do is going to be a couple years down the road for sure.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. One thing you mentioned earlier in the beginning of the talk, the big fish kill or the big everything kill from the hurricane. And immediately I figured it was the fresh water that poisoned. There were saltwater species, but you were saying it was pollution. And do you know that wasn't the big slug of fresh water really hard on all the fish that normally are marine?
So if you looked at the water during that event, it looked as though it was just filled with sediment. So you'd go, oh, the turbidity was high, but it wasn't turbidity. So our measurements on turbidity were showing very low. So it's called sedum. It's like pollution and phaeopigments from plants. They get pushed out from freshwater plants upstream, cattails mainly. But because it also hit on this neap tide where nothing was really coming in to flush it out, it hit at the right time. I mean, it was really the perfect storm. So we had 50 hours of basically zero dissolved oxygen. And so big fish just couldn't find a place to go.
Okay.
But we sampled 2 weeks after fish, and we had juvenile fish everywhere. So they found a place to go, and they were up in the plants and up in the high marsh, and then came back down, and they seemed to be able to survive. So, but it was sad. I mean, we had bat rays that, you know, had 3.5-foot wingspans, dead, you know, and that's really hard for me. Yeah. But it was very unique storm to happen at the very wrong time.
Right, yeah. And I also just want to say thank you for being a champion of mudflats. Mudflats do not get enough credit in our world, and you're one of the ones who's holding the standard for that, so thank you.
Trying to. Thanks.
I know you have a really good working relationship with the city of Encinitas. So I was curious if there's anything that either our Parks Department or the city of Encinitas could do to help further your mission, or anything that you're working on currently in a partnership with us?
Good question. Money. Sorry, was that too forward? No. You know, money always helps, but collaboration, and we're willing to collaborate with the city on funding to help us. There are issues that we're trying to work on, which are the Lake Drive issue that we've been dealing with, and then the long-term issue that we have to deal with on Lake Drive. We're now just receiving tons of sand every time there's an event in San Diego, any type of rain event that blows through. We got the road open, right? You guys did, the city did a great job like fixing the road, but it's still blowing sand out. And it's blowing that out right into a channel that I just dredged. So it's gonna cost $1 million for me to go and remove that. So the way we can collaborate, I think, to me, is by working together to find the solution to get funding to do that. And it's harsh, I know, it's a lot of money, but there are ways we can work together to get it.
I would just also note that Doug was very helpful too in the project that I was spearheading regarding getting pedestrian access at the Manchester-San Alejo Avenue, where we got crosswalks installed and a DG path that linked that intersection to the trailhead at San Alejo Lagoon. So we also got rid of quite a bit of acacia trees in conjunction with that, and improved some views from the road and for the neighbors there too. And he's also been working with me some on the next phase that we'd like to do, and doing a little beautification of that triangular area there at that intersection to help us with some of the plant selections, and hoping those plants get settled in by providing some water from his water truck. So he certainly, and the Nature Collective is active in some of the ancillary city functions that we're doing. So we certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great, Doug. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay, going back to our regular agenda, I think we're kind of moving past changes to the agenda due to kind of the special speaker we just had right now. We can move towards the approval of the minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So this will be an action to approve the August 10th special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to?
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, the August 10th, 2023 special meeting minutes are approved.
Great, thank you. Item 7B, which would be a approval of the August 15th regular meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
And the August 15th, 2023 regular meeting minutes are approved.
Great, thank you very much. We will now go to the Parks and Rec Commission work plan. Let's see if we can go through these, I guess, one by one again, which we've done in the past. Do we want to now update item number 1, considering that we've completed our tour today of the various Encinitas locations?
Sure, staff will add that for the next meeting.
Great. Moving to item number 2, is there anything new to report on that one from the commissioners?
No report, just a question. Would we expect the holiday parade activities to get started relatively soon?
Manager Hamer, I was going to cover that in the department update, but yes, it's rolling, and I will share those details in the update.
Great, thank you.
I would note on this particular item that as we consider attending city-sponsored events, I know Manager Hamer had put out an email suggesting if any of the commissioners might be available to participate in the Encinitas Oktoberfest that's coming up, and then also if we wanted to have any representatives from the Parks and Rec Commission for the upcoming movie in the park in October at Glen Park. So those are two upcoming opportunities where we could volunteer. If anyone was interested in that particular item for, and we'll get to that, but and later on for the, what's the terminology that we were using? I've obviously been gone too long. It's another work plan item further down with regards to the October event, but basically, rather than perhaps doing a pickleball court, that's where we might just man some assistance on maybe doing decorations or doing cornhole or something like that. So we'll get to that, but it does kind of tie into attending the city-sponsored events.
You're thinking of the pop-up parks?
That's what I was trying to come up with. I knew it started with a P.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is, of course, identifying guest speakers for monthly meetings, which we are making good progress on that. And I think you can see that there are still some slots open later in the calendar year. I believe particularly in November and January and February, so I'm sure we're working towards getting some additional speakers.
Yeah, so I can say something about that. I have been in touch with the county, Tara Lawson-Remmer's office, to see if I could get somebody to come in to talk about the Encinitas landfill park conversion project, which is supposed to be, for which there was money budgeted in fiscal year 23-24 to do a feasibility study to see if for converting the landfill to a county park. Just chatting with David on the beach today, it suggested that may be postponed a bit, so I don't know. All I've heard back from the office is that they wanted to know when our meetings were and what dates were available, and I proposed the November date, the November date, or January or February, since we don't meet in December. And so hopefully we'll get somebody in to talk about that, but I don't have anything more at this point. And of course, next month, David set up a San Diego Botanic Garden for our speaker, and we'll be sure to put it on the agenda.
Great. Okay, thank you. Item number 4, we've actually completed that as a commission, so congratulations to all of us. Good job. Item number 5, Manager Hamer, do you want me to hold off on that because we'll be talking about that in just a moment?
Yes, that'd be fine. I'll be detailing that in item 8B.
Super. Okay, thank you. So that'll be coming up just momentarily. We've been talking a lot about, so item number 6 is volunteer recruitment and implementation. So there are a couple of opportunities for some of the commissioners to volunteer, which we just heard about from Commissioner Ritter. Anything else to add on this front from Commissioner Hanson or Vanderaar?
No, this item's essentially done,
This item's done. Okay.
unless Margaret needs some more.
Okay.
Manager Hamer, I agree. The volunteer program is launched. It's becoming robust. It's getting there, and we do appreciate all the input that's been given along the way.
Great, thank you. Maybe we could also then update the outcomes section in our work plan to reflect that, if it's okay, please. So number 7 is research and planning for outdoor adult fitness equipment. There is a kind of an organizational meeting that we're scheduling for the end of October. Not sure, Commissioner Ritter, do you want to provide a further update on that?
And perhaps Manager Norgard will jump in here as well, but a consultant has been selected for considering Orpheus Park. So we'll have a kickoff meeting, and I think we're going to shoot for ideally the second week of October. So yes, so that meeting is coming up. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to add to that other than something is actually happening on it, so we're excited about it.
Yeah, great, thank you. And that was an item just for some of the other commissioners that really started a couple of years ago. Commissioner Ritter really led the charge on this to try to see how we could get some adult outdoor fitness equipment into our parks, into our community, kind of along trails, and glad to see that we're finally, I shouldn't say finally, glad to see that we're getting traction on that. It's just things take time and things don't happen overnight. So I'm glad that we were not discouraged and still pushing forward with that. So just thank you very much for your continued hard work on that. Number 8, I'm not sure if there's anything new to report in terms of tennis court and pickleball court use. I think use still seems to be very high and people seem to be enjoying those facilities. Manager Norgard, did you have something to add there?
This is Manager Norgard. So we are actually resurfacing the court down at Moonlight Beach right now, and it will be dual striped again. That court is closed this week, should open hopefully this weekend. Excuse me, but again, we're going back to dual striping there, so no operational change. Things have been pretty copacetic between the different groups. We are looking at how our rules are working. Is it still appropriate to have a 1-hour time limit for the different groups, or do we want to cycle them in more quickly like we do at the Senior and Community Center? So we're looking at those at an operational level and talking to some of the other cities, and we want to also talk to some of the users out in the field before we make any of those changes. But we do also track any input that we get from the community, either from the phone or through our website. We actually track and log all of those so that we can see how those trends are going over time. And right now, everybody seems to be doing pretty well out there, and we are still having quite high use.
Could you just elaborate for 1 second? When you say we're having quite high use, is that due to kind of just observations that you or others are making, kind of making sure that the courts are being used appropriately, or is there any other kind of metric, or is it fairly just more anecdotal like that?
That's a good question. Most of it is anecdotal and kind of surreptitious observation as staff are out there. Staff are at Moonlight and Cottonwood Creek pretty much every day, just mostly for operational issues, and they do talk to the users quite a bit. We've talked to not only the longtime users, but I think I mentioned this in the past, that we've had some groups of folks using Moonlight Beach in particular who are high school students and have just kind of started that on their own. It's not organized, but there's a small group of high school students that have started using those courts. So it's really important for us to see that intergenerational play, and it's not just one demographic, but multiple. And so we do know at Cottonwood, for example, that we have long waits, and so that has not really changed. So we definitely have high use there. And part of it is just oversaturation in the market. There's only so many places to play. Bobby Riggs converted to pickleball, and that helped a little bit for a little while, but we're really back to where we were before that conversion, and we're still seeing, a high demand for additional courts throughout the city.
Great, thank you very much.
I did have one more question. I think I took a note from the last time that we might expect the sport court analysis.
That's right. We did discuss that in the last meeting, and I checked in with the consultant. Their deliverable is due to us at the end of September. So staff will review that, make sure that it's okay to distribute and doesn't have any major factual errors, and then we'll be able to share that with you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, item number 9, I think Vice Chair Ritter is what you were referring to earlier as it relates to pop-up parks. Is there something else you wanted to add to that at this moment?
The only thing I was just going to say is if any commissioner is interested in volunteering for this event that's coming up, could you remind me of the date? Is October 14th?
Correct, Saturday, October 14th.
And it's at Glen Park in Cardiff. It can be a really fun event. Are you considering doing surveys as well again?
We do not have a plan for surveys.
Okay.
If the commission had a survey they wanted to do, we could look at that. But there is actually, to be honest, I take that back. The Cultural Arts Division does have a survey out right now, so that would be a great opportunity to do the reach out and encourage the families there to participate.
Okay. So basically what the surveys do is it provides some statistics as to the value that the city invests in these recreational events, and it asks respondents, is this something that where there's money that's coming into the community, where they have decided to eat out before the event, or whether we could attribute any monetary value to holding the event. Is that the particular survey that you're speaking of?
The survey
AE?
I'm mentioning is a new survey. It's
Okay.
regarding the interests and preferences to be held at the Pacific View Art Center. So it's feedback specifically about programming and highlights that would be handled there.
And is that other survey, has that time frame ended where we're no longer surveying that?
Yes, I believe that time frame has ended.
Okay, thank you. So there would be that new survey opportunity, as well as maybe setting up some cornholes, interacting with the citizens. There might be some fun activities up at the Scout House with regards to maybe doing a haunted house up through there. So there are quite a few opportunities for volunteering. So if anyone is interested, please contact either one of us. We'd be happy to help us set that up.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair Ritter. Item number 10, I think, have we decided that we've completed this work plan item as well, or is there anything new to add on the trails?
We did meet with staff recently and got some feedback. We're still working on outer spatial now.
Okay. And you guys still out and about exploring different trails for either safety issues or signage issues, or just recommendations to the public?
Yeah, I think updating outer spatial with descriptions and photos for the most part.
Great. Awesome, thank you. And the last is to continue the support, number 11, continue support of Friends of Encinitas Park as they continue to support the Parks and Rec Department. Anything else you'd like to add on that, Commissioner Hanson?
We're still waiting on the water fountain. But other than that, there hasn't been much going on.
You received a grant, and your funds are then using to pay for the water fountain for? Great. Thank you very much for doing that. We appreciate it. Excellent. Do you have a time frame of when that might be?
I think there's some logistic issues.
From a staff's perspective, I can say that we anticipate having it installed before the end of your work plan. So the water fountain has kind of a long lead time, and we're working through some financial steps to determine if we need to take the donation first or order the piece of equipment first. But either way, we anticipate that it'll be completed and installed in this work plan.
Great, thank you very much. And are the Friends of Encinitas Park soliciting and looking for additional funding and donations as well?
Not right now. We're still working on finding the direction.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
it's going slow.
Okay, well, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next, so I think that concludes item 8A. Manager Hamer, did you want to address the athletic field use during the your recreation service report, or should we do that now as per the agenda?
We should do it as part of the agenda. I
Okay.
have a brief presentation just to review the different steps that brought us to this point, if you will give me a moment.
Yes.
So as you know, this was on the work plan, and I did meet with the ad hoc committee, and I'll give you a little bit of the background. Is this is a goal for use responsible use, utilization, and preservation of the city's athletic fields. This has been a goal always, but we really wanted to fine-tune the policy. Again, the policy started as a department policy that was approved by a director in 2005. They came up with a coalition, a sports coalition of recreation excellence, which had a different level of criteria. The last time that was updated was 2015. And what we found was past guidelines, the fields listed, the hours of operation were no longer accurate or effective in ensuring this responsible use, utilization, and preservation, which again is our priority. So we met as an ad hoc committee with that group. Thank you all for taking the time for reviewing this long policy and giving me your feedback. We then met with all the sports groups, all the different user groups, and got their feedback and input and continued to refine it. And we are here tonight to have you review that. And the goal is to have this go in front of the City Council in October. Quickly, highlights for just the score criteria was revamped to actually be priority groups. Priority groups is how we use our other bookings and reservations, whether it's special events or rentals. We also implemented a disciplinary action for field policy violations. We came to find out when we were running through fees that violations are happening. Some of these groups are sharing their fields or they're leaving lights on after they leave, and this is very problematic for the city. So we really were trying to use this action to have accountability. So we also updated the process for obtaining and maintaining permits, including cancellations. Field hours available for permitting was updated. The process for unused permitted fields, and as happened in June 28th, the new per player fees that the City Council approved also needed to be added. Just as a quick spotlight, these are the different groups. This replaces score. So groups 2, 3, and 4 are instead of score. And they're broken down, which I think is much more effective, by percentage of residency and recreation versus competitive. So as you can see, that the recreation, non-competitive, 70% residency is group 2. And that's very important for making sure that the best representation is on the fields. And again, for a quick highlight of the disciplinary actions, verbal, written warning, we start off being very fair. If it's a second offense, we do usually put it in writing and make sure they're well aware of what's going on. They hear from me. And that third offense would potentially be that permits are held or revoked, or they possibly don't get to participate in the allocation process, the next allocation meeting we have.
I have a quick question on the offenses.
Sure.
Is that repeat offenses of the same offense, or could they leave their field lights on one time and then maybe not pick up all their equipment a second time? Is that 2 offenses, or is that 1 offense each?
Those are 2. There's many different offenses that happen, and if we were to put them in a specific bucket, it would take quite some long time. We have found it tends to be the same groups who kind of fall short in some of the different areas that are critical for safety on the fields, and these groups are leading our youth here in the community, and we want to make sure that responsible usage is being managed. So these are just some of the examples of the fun things that we have, like lights on empty fields, things left that block the irrigation and could potentially, damage some of the equipment that we have on site. We also just recently set up locking up gates, and unfortunately, the first week, our park supervisor showed up and the gate was unlocked. So we really want to work with our groups and make sure they understand the importance of this responsible use. And again, it's for utilization and preservation and really protecting our fields that we do have. So this is the next steps, and by motion, I ask that you recommend the City Council adopt the proposed policy, and we are hoping that if approved in October, we will then be implementing it at our first meeting, which is at the end of October, and really go over it thoroughly with all our groups and make sure they understand the importance of upholding it and the consequences if they choose not to. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I think before we have a vote on that, I'd just like to see if there's any questions anybody might have for Manager Hamer on this. I worked on this ad hoc. I thought that the staff presented a very, very good policy. They gave us ample opportunity to review, make comments, suggestions, understand. In particular, we spent quite a lot of time on that disciplinary process and trying to understand it. And in fact, at certain points, the commissioners were arguing for perhaps stronger disciplinary action. At other points, we were arguing for less disciplinary action. So we had a really good, robust discussion on that, and I appreciate staff's willingness to engage in that dialogue and debate with us. That was very helpful for us to understand this policy. I think it's well thought out. I've had a chance to work on this as well, so I'm excited about this motion that we'll do shortly, but I wanted to open it up. Well, first, if anybody else who is on that ad hoc would like to comment, you can. Otherwise, if there's any questions, we can certainly take that at this time.
I just want to say thank you to Margaret for what was really a huge amount of work. It was quite obvious, and you did a really wonderful job. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I had a couple of questions. Could I see page 3 of the document that discussed Group 6 and Group 7?
Are you talking about the actual policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Do
we can
you
pull
have that
up.
available? I was just curious, we talk about residency levels on groups like 2 through 4. I was curious under Group 6, which is resident private adult group, and Group 7, which is resident profit-making group, regarding whether they are resident or not. Is that just based upon whether the person that's requesting the permit is a resident? So it doesn't have to do with the party itself or the group itself as to whether there's residency requirements?
Yes, it has to do with the applicant.
Okay, fantastic. And then on page 4, I had a question on that one a little further down. Okay, so we have 2 sections here. So under the first section, I noticed that that bylaws were not required to be provided in that first section, but in the second section, if they end up splitting, for instance, that then bylaws are required. Is that part, is providing the bylaws part of the athletic field use application?
Yes, it is, if they qualify for the Group 2, 3, or 4.
Okay. So then we're assuming in that first section that you're not including the bylaws as a requirement for submission because it's part of the athletic field use application.
Yes, it is.
And yet, aren't we also having them make an application in the second section if they end up splitting? And then we say that we do want bylaws?
Right, because they would be splitting as a completely different organization.
Okay.
So they would have to be starting fresh. They wouldn't be able to say, this one group's now going to be 2 different groups. They would have to be treated as a whole new organization starting from scratch.
Right. Okay. I guess the way I would look at it is if bylaws is part of the application, that perhaps we don't really need to detail that they also need to provide the bylaws if that's part of the application process. I was just trying to see that the first section at the top, that the same information is somewhat required as the part on the bottom. So that's just where I saw some inconsistencies and was just kind of curious. Like, for instance, I noticed that insurance is not listed in the second list on the bottom there, but is something that we do have to require on the first part, where they have the property and liability damage insurance.
Yes. So that is, again, part of the application process. We could take a deeper look at this before it goes to council. If you believe there's inconsistencies, we can check into that. It was vetted, again, with the ad hoc committee and director and the sports groups, and we did not get any different feedback. But I see your point, and we can definitely take a second look at it.
I don't know if it necessarily would hold up approving the document, but I guess my only point is just maintain consistency between the 2 sections.
Thank you.
The 990 on a not-for-profit doesn't mean they're necessarily in compliance with all of the regulatory filings. So I would recommend getting a Secretary of State good standing certificate or the Department of Justice Attorney General's office. So just because you're current on your taxes doesn't mean you're current with everything.
Correct. And there is a process that we can look them up on those sites
Right.
as well, and that's usually done as a cross-check.
Or are you doing that?
Yes.
I think the other part too on that was the documents of affiliation with sports governing body was listed in one section and on the other two. So I would just suggest maybe looking at both of them and creating some consistency between the two.
Thank you.
I have a question. With the current feedback, are we able to vote on approval of the document, or do we need to wait?
We could vote on it, and this is just still a draft. This is not final until City Council does their final review and they approve it. That's then when it becomes an official policy. Right now, you are only making a recommendation, and I'm hearing your feedback, and we will take another look at that. There might be, even working with our management analysts, some different edits or cleanup and still might be in process. It's the City Council who will make that final vote and approve it.
Okay. So I would, with consideration for the feedback you've received and any adjustments to that, based on that consideration, I would make a motion to approve the field use and fees document.
And I would second the motion.
Okay, the motion passes.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and questions and suggestions. I appreciate it very much. I'm sure Manager Hamer will absolutely review those as she goes through a normal review and edit process. So I think that's great. Let's move to the park operations report, please.
Thank you. This is Manager Norgard. Relatively brief update this evening. I did mention that the tennis and pickleball court at Moonlight Beach is currently closed. We anticipate that opening this weekend as we restripe it. We also had some restriping going on at Scott Valley Park and Leo Mullen. Those are largely complete as far as I know at the basketball courts. And looking forward, we will be closing the Maggie Houlihan Memorial Dog Park at the Encinitas Community Park for our biannual rest and renovation period, and that will be from October 2nd through October 30th. We will be focusing on turf grass renovations as we always do. You'll notice that it looks largely green right now, but what you're seeing there is the tail end of the summer annuals, largely goosegrass. So we will be overseeding with ryegrass so that we have a nice green carpet throughout the winter and spring months as the cool down happens, and then we start the cycle all over again with our spring closure and warm up grasses. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions on that report? Nope. Okay. Could we please have the Recreation Services report, please?
Manager Hamer, as we have already discussed, the movie night is coming on Saturday, October 14th, and we do welcome any assistance or help, or a pop-up park would be fun as well. We are in the midst of planning for our winter guide. Mid-October, we'll be doing our export of information, and we're hoping to release that guide in early December. I'd already shared about the Pacific View Arts Center requesting community input. So we have flyers and a barcode for that, but we will be sharing that at the event and all of the future events. It's going to close in November, so there is plenty of time. And I'll share that with you online as well, so you can share with your different network of community resources. most importantly, I'm going to touch upon the holiday parade. We did meet with the committee, and the theme was determined. It's Traditions of Encinitas, which opens the door for lots of interesting and creative ways to celebrate that theme. That will be creating a logo and pulling together. We've already released the entry application, so those are online, and we already have some received, which is exciting. And next month, early October, we hope to have the new special events and special projects supervisor on board, and they will be the main lead for that event. And I do plan to bring that person here to our next Parks and Recreation Commission meeting so you can meet them directly. And we will discuss more about the holiday parade plans. And thank you for all your help at all the different events. You have all been so responsive, whether it's been the Moonlight Beach concerts or the art nights. There's always one or two of you that raise your hand for that. And I know the Cultural Arts Division is very grateful, as well as Recreation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that report. Any questions on that report?
I had volunteered for the Moonlight Beach concert, and I sent you an email. I came down with the worst stomach virus the night before, and I was so bummed out because I was really hoping to volunteer at the information booth. So next time, I promise.
It was the thought and intent, and we will have a full series next.
Any other questions or illnesses to share? No. Okay. Thank you very much. I think
I'm
it
sorry.
was-
Maybe I can
Oh,
just
there's-
ask,
yes.
since I'm on the ad hoc for the holiday parade, and I have no idea what we're supposed to do. Dan has done it before, I think. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So good. So you're just going to tell us what to do?
We will have planning meetings
Okay.
in October.
Yeah, okay. All right. So basically, don't worry about it right now. Worry
Correct.
about it in October. Okay.
Yeah, I would plan on no travel October, November until 24/7 until the parade. So I think that's. And
Okay.
yes, you have to do the application. So
Do we need to submit an application?
We will fill that out for you. I was told that staff fill out the applications for the commissions.
Thank you.
One less thing for us to do.
good job, Commissioner O'Halloran. Congratulations.
Probably because we ball last time. That's why they're doing.
I don't think there's any other questions. Thank you for your report. I appreciate it. Back to the agenda, item number 10, any commission member initiated agenda items? There are not. Item number 11, any future agenda items added by commission members? No, it doesn't seem like that. We can do commissioner reports. If anyone would like anything they'd like to share or anything they have to report, that would be the time to do it is right now. Yes, thank you.
I plan to attend the Movies in the Park in October, so wherever you need me, pop-up park or otherwise.
Wonderful, thank you.
Commissioner Quinn, anything you'd like to share at this time or report?
No, I already gave my medical report for
Thank
the
you.
night.
Okay, appreciate that. Excellent, thank you. I'm glad you're feeling better as well. Commissioner O'Halloran?
Nothing additional tonight, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Meldau?
I went to the last Moonlight concert, and they didn't really need my help, so I danced.
Good.
And that was a lot of fun.
Okay. And thank you very much for arranging speakers as well. We appreciate that. And I appreciate your dedication to the commission. So thank you for all your hard work as well. Nothing at all. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to thank Manager Hammer, and as well as the ad hoc that worked with her on developing the field use allocation. I know there's a lot of work that went into that, and it shows, and I think it should be a great policy moving forward, and hopefully it will resolve some of the issues that we've had in the past. And I agree with Commissioner or Chair Winters that certainly appreciate your help with all of the great speakers that have been showing up during the commission. So thank you so much for that.
I guess I'll end the commissioner reports. I just wanted to similarly thank Commissioner Hamer for her hard work on the field use policy. Thank you again for that. I also want to thank both Manager Norgard and Hamer as now, of course, we have an interim director. We're very happy to have such an esteemed interim director as well. Sometimes, from my perspective, the department's running very well. I'm been really impressed with both Manager Norgard and Manager Hamer. They're both tremendously dedicated, responsible, and professional, and they've been great to work with. So, welcome again, interim director, and I'd love to, if you have anything to say, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Royce Powell. I'm the interim director, and I am super excited to join this amazing team. There's a running joke at City Hall that Parks and Rec is the fun department, and they truly are. And what's even more amazing is hearing the conversation tonight. Even the commissioners is the fun commission. I mean, you're doing cornholes and talking about cornholes events and pop-up events, and you're actually going out to the community and advocating for the city and promoting programs and educating the community about different programs that the city offers. That is amazing that you as commissioners are walking the talk. So I commend you, and the city appreciate your work and all that you're doing. Coming from the Planning Commission, it's different because we are at least the Planning Commission, they're a semi or a judicial position. They have to make decisions. But this is the fun commission. So you guys lucked out that you get to be part of this commission. So I'm super excited to be part of this team. You have two of the best managers in all of North County, if not San Diego County. So this department and the city and organization is very blessed to have these two fine human beings. So I look forward to serving all of you, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that. We will show you the secret handshake after the meeting, and but welcome to the Fun Commission as well. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:49 p.m. Thank you.